Hey, good morning, kids. Coming at you this morning from a little bit of a different area of the basement. This is the workshop. Swivel you around a little bit so you can see. That's the other workbench over there. You're locked in the vise. So, I wanted to talk to you today about Iwo Jima. Some of you guys are probably far enough into the deck that you guys have done a little bit about a little bit of learning about Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was some really, really hard fighting in the Pacific. The Japanese were definitely a different enemy than the Germans were in Europe. They were, it was a different culture, different all around than fighting in Europe. The guys that were fighting in the Pacific were fighting a different battle. The warfare was just completely a different animal. I know I'm gonna say the word different a whole lot, but it's not the open fields of Germany or in France, and to say open fields, in Germany and France, it really wasn't open fields. They were dealing with hedges. They were dealing with, they weren't dealing with trenches as much as they were in World War One. But they had that to deal with. They had crater holes and artillery holes and things like that. But they could drive tanks across. One of the things that they were doing, the major strategy in the Pacific, was one called island hopping, and that's one of the things that led them up to Iwo Jima, which, put yourself in the shoes of the Japanese. Hannah and I talked about this the other day. If you're an island nation, which was, the Japanese were, this would absolutely terrify you, this strategy. Like, what the Allies were doing is they would take an island, establish a base, and use that base to capture another island. Establish a base, capture another island. Establish a base, so on and so forth, creeping closer and closer to the main islands of Japan. Japan itself, you've seen a map of Japan, or if you haven't seen a map of Japan by now, young children, you have the Google search skills to go look it up. It's part of your scrapbook. Go look up the main archipelago of Japan. Japan is an archipelago, which means it's a string of islands. In fact, actually, it's more of a cloud of islands. What you see is the main map of Japan actually is not really the whole story. There's actually a whole bunch of more islands that is considered Japan, so those islands that you see as the big islands of Japan, there's more to it, I think, than that. There's smaller islands around that. So if you are a regular person living on Japan and you see what the Allies are doing, creeping closer and closer and closer and closer, taking an island and establishing a base, you're getting scared. You're getting really desperate. And I've been reading a whole lot of Eastern philosophy, over the breaks. Well, it's not really been a break. Calling it a break's the wrong thing. Over the closure. And, kind of getting into the mindset and kind of understanding, their way of thinking is important, because that's the enemy that you're fighting. Sun Tzu, one of the great philosophers of the East, says to know your enemy as you know yourself. So, they're defending their homeland, and Iwo Jima as an island, they had turned it into just an absolute hornet's nest of an island. If you've ever seen a hornet's nest or a wasp's nest or an anthill that's been cut into a cross section, then you could imagine what the Japanese military had done to this island. It wasn't just what was on the surface of this island. Iwo Jima was a series of tunnels and underground bunkers and fortifications. Iwo Jima was absolutely defendable to the last Japanese soldier, and that's what they did. You know, I've made this point in class before, guys. It is so much easier to defend than it is to attack. And our soldiers and the allies that were helping us had to attack a hornet's nest at Iwo Jima. And those of you that have gone through the material in the deck toy so far, you know, have, you know, seen just the huge job that the Marines and the Naval Forces and the Air Force, our soldiers had that huge job. And, you know, now that we can look back through the lens of time, and now that, you know, we can, you know, now that we're friends with the Japanese again, you know, and look at the job that they did defending that island. And think about the warrior culture that they had cultivated through the centuries, and that, look at that battle as the culmination of two warrior cultures coming together. Like a Japanese soldier knowing that if they failed at Iwo Jima, what was America's next step? America's next step, if our island hopping strategy was to take Okinawa, or excuse me, I just blew it for you. Spoiler alert. So if we're going to take Iwo Jima, our next step's Okinawa. Okinawa is basically Japan, you know. And then like once we take Okinawa, we're in mainland Japan. That's home to them. You know, you have to think about it. You know, we're 70 years removed from this war now. If you put the shoe on the other foot and you think about it from their perspective, they're defending home. You know, they're fighting to save mom, to save grandpa. You know, they would be doing the same thing that you or I or anybody would be doing in the same exact situation. Flip it on the same, you know, flip the script. You know, that Japanese soldier defending Iwo Jima would be the same thing that we would be doing defending Oak Island if it was reversed. You know, if the, you know, let's make up someone. If the Phoenicians were attacking Manteo, every single one of us would be out there right now. You know? So, I don't know, I'm waxing philosophical again at this point. It's 9 minutes into the video, it's that point. But that's the job that our soldiers had to do against their soldiers. And like, if you study the culture of the Japanese, the warrior culture that they had, you can understand a little bit more how tough it was, and just the immense job, and why the heroism of our soldiers and airmen and sailors, and how commendable it was that we won that day. that we won on the attack because it is so much easier to defend. And they were using flamethrowers. They were desperate, defending their home on home turf that they had turned into a hornet's nest of fortified tunnels and bunkers. And America still won that day. That's incredible. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers. That's something to remember. Like, we've got a holiday coming up here very soon, I think, don't we? To remember the people that did that. That's kind of important. Keep working on your stuff. It's all due on the 22nd. If you have any questions, come see me today in the meet. The Google chat's open pretty much from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. If I see a chat open after hours by, happenstance, I might answer it. If not, I'll catch it at 8 a.m. You can always email me. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, I guess. I don't know. It's a teacher YouTube channel. If you found this YouTube channel and you're not in my class, thanks for watching, I guess. Learn you up some stuff. You can't do the work if you're not in my class, but read something about Iwo Jima.